Let me call you sweetheart. I'm in love with you.
Welcome to the B-List, where we talk about everything we love to hate
and everything that we hate to love. Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
We made it!
We made it! We survived!
We survived. You know, not all of my best moments have happened on New Year's Eve.
I have had some not great I've had not great moments in this house New Year's Eve.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if I've had a lot of great New Year's Eve, as a matter of fact.
It's never been like it is in the movies, you know, where it's like
Well,
magical
you get those
kisses at midnight.
You get those drinks flowing, and then everything falls apart. It never
I've
rolls.
spent many a New Year's Eve in a drive-thru getting some Whataburger or something.
I know those poor people are always having to serve me after I've had spend most of my night crying at somebody.
Waffle House.
Yeah.
No, you're an amazing hostess. Courtney is an amazing hostess, and
I try.
She has spent some. I mean, probably it wasn't New Year's Eve. That time that person threw up everywhere, and you guys had to clean it up. Like,
oh, there's been plenty of people to throw up in my house on New Year's Eve.
Not just New Year's, you guys, like year round.
Yeah. We have a pretty good Halloween party that we haven't been able to have the last
Hopefully
couple of years.
2022. Hopefully
Next year, adult Halloween will be back on. That's why everybody needs to get their shots and
get vaccinated.
We'll touch on that in a little bit here because I've got a little story for you guys here in a little while. But right now we're going to talk about other New Year's Eve events that didn't quite go.
Some B-list New Year's Eves.
B-list New Year's Eve.
Yes, some crappy New Year's Eve. Okay, so I'm going to kick us off with Evel Knievel. Do you remember Evel Knievel?
Yes.
I remember, like, I had a lot of boy cousins growing up, and they were, like, obsessed with Evel Knievel. If you guys don't know who he is, he's, like, this stunt dude from, like, a long time ago who used his motorcycle to jump off crap and over other crap. So in November 17th, in 1967, he first saw the fountains at Caesar Palace and said, I want to jump that. Because, like a man.
That's exactly what I said when I saw them.
I mean, anytime I see any fountain, I'm like, I bet I could jump that. And so he decided in November that he was going to work towards jumping this fountain. So December 31st, 1967, he goes to jump the fountains at Caesar Palace. That morning, though, that morning, woke up, stopped in the casino, placed his last $100 on the blackjack table, stopped by the bar, had a couple shots of wild turkey, because that's what you want to do.
That's what you want to do before doing a giant stunt.
A giant precision-based stunt, where I'm pretty sure you got to do math and stuff to figure out the angles and the arc and all that stuff. Probably not. I don't think he was doing that.
I don't know. He didn't seem like a math guy.
But I don't think he was a mathematician. So he heads outside, did a couple of warm-ups and approaches, doing some stretches and stuff. When he takes off, hit the ramp, he felt his motorcycle unexpectedly decelerate, which is the opposite of accelerate, if you guys don't know what that is.
It means to slow down.
To slow. And he crashed into the Dunes parking lot. And as a result of that crash, he crushed his pelvis, femur, fractured his hip, wrist, and both ankles, and had a concussion.
So like a normal New Year's Eve for one of us.
Normal New Year's Eve. Just like
I do that falling down, so.
And it just reminds me of being a kid and, like, watching my cousins. They did ride dirt bikes and stuff, but usually it was bicycles, like, in the street. They would make ramps.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I had zero desire.
All the boys on
I remember being a kid. I was a kid being like, nah, I'm going to hurt myself. No, thank you.
I would try to avoid cracks in the sidewalk because I know if I hit it, I'm going to veer off into traffic.
You and I were the kind of kids where, like, we couldn't walk without falling over. I'm not going to get on a bicycle. Like, I'm not going to try and jump over a fountain, and I don't know. And then he went on to, like he was a stuntman for years. I remember seeing stuff of his in, like, the 80s and stuff. Like, he was a stuntman forever.
You remember Super Dave?
Super Dave, which is, like, the spoof of Evel Knievel. Yes, it was ridiculous.
He used to even have toys, too, that I remember my cousins having one toy that it seems like it had a loop that you would pull.
Yeah, the pull
and it would zoom off and you could jump ramps with it and everything. Yeah.
I think the new Toy Story movie, they have like some character, it's like Canadian, help me out guys, I don't remember his name. It's like a Canadian guy, and it's like it's like an Evil Knievel toy, and it's
Okay.
voiced by Keanu Reeves.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
I love him.
Boom. Something Captain Kaboom or something Kaboom. You guys are probably shouting the answer. I don't know. Something Kaboom.
Yeah.
And he's a stunt guy.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to keep up with the Toy Story movies. I haven't kept up with them. Like now that my kiddo's grown, I don't really ever see any of those. And I always love Pixar. And
My 18-year-old asked to go see it.
oh, really?
He's like, because I started out watching those movies, and can mom go see it? So we went to go see it. He's like, yeah, it's a movie. Like,
Aw.
I mean, if you see one Toy Story, you've seen them all.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. Yeah. And they always end up in a tear jerker.
Yes, you're gonna cry.
I'm gonna cry.
Mm-mm.
Well, I'm gonna take my first bad New Year's Eve way back to 192 AD.
Good year.
It was great wine.
Rockin' year.
That was a rockin' year. It wasn't rockin' for...
Correct me if I'm wrong. That was when Dick Clark was born.
I believe it was. No, I think he was walking by this point.
The original Baby New Year.
The original Baby New Year. I'm going to take it back all the way to the Roman Empire and talk about the Roman Emperor Commodus. I think is how you pronounce it. Commodus.
Commodus.
Yes, because I keep wanting to say Commodus like a toilet, but it's not. It's Commodus. Roman Emperor Commodus. You guys will probably know him better. He was portrayed in some famous movies. Christopher Plummer played him in The Fall of the Roman Empire, and more famously, Joaquin Phoenix played him in the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe, which was a great movie. I'm not usually into period action films, but I really liked Gladiator.
I really like
a whole
Gladiator.
lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, he, of course, like all Roman emperors, I hear this about every single one of them. He was narcissistic. He was kind of tyrannical. Nobody liked him. He was actually kind of favored by common people a little bit more, but he did things throughout his own career. He ruled with his father for many years, and then when his father died, he ruled alone. I think it was from like 180 to 192 AD. Okay. So he got like a good 12 years in there that he ruled by himself. And in this time, he devalued the Roman currency by diluting the gold and silver in their coinage. He would dilute the purity of it, so it wouldn't be pure silver or anything like that. And so, of course, the rich and elite didn't like this.
Well, no,
because
you're watering down their money.
You're watering down their money. He also did things like he tried to rename Rome after himself. That's
a baller move. That's like a bold move, Cotton.
He would bolster treaties between armies that they were supposed to be at war with, So he was actually really popular with the common people and with the militaries, but the political elite and the high society did not like him at all. So of course they throughout his lifetime tried to kill him multiple times. He survived multiple assassination attempts. One was by his sister, I think it was Lucilla, that conspired with the senators to have him killed, but it was thwarted. Another time,
pretty bad when your own sister wants
I know his sister. Well, his favorite concubine tried to poison him at one time, and he survived that assassination attempt as well. So he goes through all of this, and only on like I said, New Year's Eve, 192 AD, he was strangled to death while taking a bath. And you know how much Romans love their baths.
They
had houses dedicated to it.
They are known for their baths.
They're known for their baths. He was strangled to death by a wrestler that he had been training with, because at this point, he thought himself to be Herculean. He thought that the god Hercules coursed through his veins or whatever.
Kind of like when Mickey Rourke decided he was going to be a boxer.
Right. Exactly.
But not.
And look at him now.
Look at him. Look what happened to that face.
But yeah, that beautiful face.
God, he was gorgeous
when
he was young.
Good looking guy. But yeah.
Anyways.
So this wrestler was paid actually by the high society elites. Mm-hmm. He was paid. He was paid to strangle him, and so he died taking a bath on New Year's Eve. And that's how not a bad way to go,
though. That's how Joaquin Phoenix.
And that's how he went. Oh wait, no, he's still around.
He's still alive.
He's still making good movies. So, but yes, poor Emperor Commodus.
So I'm gonna take it even further down and sad. Near and dear to my heart. New Year's Eve. The New Year's Eve where Paul McCartney announced the split of the Beatles. Dick move.
That was a bad move.
That was a bad move. So they had a manager named Brian Epstein. I could talk about this forever, but I won't. Okay, so they had their manager. Their manager had passed away. And so they were basically making bad decisions left and right. Because their manager was like he grew up with, like, babied them, like did everything for them, basically. They were making a lot of bad decisions, spiraling, everything's bad. They bought this corporation. They bought the Apple Corp, like, they created the Apple Corporation to do, like, we're going to do art. No, wait, we're going to do this thing. No, wait, we're going to make furniture. No, wait. So they had this corporation where they're going to do all kinds of things, but they don't know how to do all kinds of things. So, like, it was very mismanaged. It turned into, like, this very, like, power struggle, like, West Side Story version of, like, Paul McCartney was with the Eastmans, who he was related to by marriage, versus this guy named Alan Klein, who John Lennon wanted to be in charge of everything. And then Ringo and George were like, well, if I have to pick, I'm going to pick this guy instead of, because that's your father-in-law, so we don't want family in it, you know? And Alan Klein ended up being sued and fired over breach of fiduciary duty because he was just screwing around all kinds of different ways. And Paul McCartney's super not happy with this. And so they all got together. But once Alan Klein was out of the picture and it was just the four of them again, they were able to work together, come to an understanding, and I didn't know this, and signed what is known as the Beatle Agreement. In December of 1974, and Paul McCartney announced the split of the Beatles. But, I mean, it had been going downhill for a couple years, because it's not all Yoko's fault, you guys.
It wasn't Yoko's fault. You leave her alone.
She took the brunt of it. She can't sing for shit, but, like, she's not... Like, people are going to do what they're going to do. People grow apart. You have to think, these men started their band when they were, like, teenagers.
Yeah.
And split when they were, like, in their early 30s.
They had to do a lot of growing up together, too, and you just grow apart sometimes.
It's like any other marriage, you grow together or you grow apart. They grew apart, and they broke up. But it sucks, because the Beatles are rad.
The Beatles were really rad.
The Beatles were rad.
They were revolutionary. We don't have to go into that, because all of our listeners and viewers, they know.
Obviously, you guys know.
You guys know, right? I don't have to go into that.
We're not going to go into it. But yeah, that was a bummer New Year's.
Well, here's a bummer New Year's for you. It wasn't bummer for him, but then, of course, leave it to me to bring murders into it.
Let's get some murder.
Ted Bundy, the prolific serial killer,
who
was handsome and charismatic, the blue-eyed lady killer in every sense of the word. He escaped out of police custody twice. And the first time he did it was in, June of 1977 from the Pitkin County Courthouse in Aspen. And he was found 6 days later roaming around the wilderness.
He just jumped out of the building.
He left.
Bye.
See ya.
But, like, who's supposed to be watching Ted? Like, oh, Ted's gone.
Well,
Ted jumped out.
He did it a second time, too. He did it a second time on New Year's Eve of the same year, 1977. Well, actually, no. He escaped on the night of December 30th, but they didn't discover he was gone until New Year's Eve.
Well, because they wanted to take a day off.
Next day. Well, yeah, and that's how he kind of slipped through, because they were on a skeleton.
You planned it right, yeah.
Yeah, they were on a skeleton crew. And
it's like one guy in charge of, like, Ted Bundy.
Probably having a couple of drinks.
Yeah, they're all drinking in the break room.
So, yeah, he wasn't discovered that he was gone on New Year's Eve until... He was gone for almost 12 hours at that point.
God, I would not want to be that guy who had to tell
Ring, ring. Hey, boss. You know that guy that we had in jail? Ted Bundy? But anyway, so yeah. The second time that he escaped, like I said, he wasn't discovered gone until almost 12 hours later. So 12 hours later, he was already in Chicago from Colorado. He was at the Garfield County Jail in Colorado.
Wily dude.
And he was in Chicago by the time that he had even discovered that he was gone. He escaped and evaded police for 6 weeks after the second.
He went to Florida, didn't he?
He got caught in Florida. And in this time, he still broke into, like, a dorm, and he had assaulted and killed and brutally beaten numerous women. I'm not going to go into it right now
because we'll cover it.
However, yeah, he he went on another spree while he was out in this 6 weeks time. And he happened to get pulled over. I think it was in Pensacola. He got pulled over near the Alabama border somewhere. And the police officer was like, wait a minute. I think we're supposed to be looking for you. And he was like, I'm out of here. And so he ran. And then, of course, they caught up with him. But yeah, 6 weeks he was gone after escaping on New Year's Eve.
So that was a wild time, man. Like, think of all the freaking murderers that were in the Could you? No, absolutely not.
Ted Bundy is the most, arguably the most horrific out of all of them, because not only did he just escape police, he decided to go back after it.
Yeah.
He's still brutally
Well, at that point,
and
it was like a
beat
compulsion.
women.
He could not stop himself.
I don't even understand that. I can't even understand that. But, he was convicted of, he ended up confessing to like 30 murders. They think he was tied to more, but they could only pin 20 on him. Only 20 murders.
You know what really ticks me off about Ted Bundy is after he died and he was cremated or whatever, he wanted his ashes spread in the wilderness where he had buried his victims.
Oh, that's so weird. Yeah, he would come back and
I would have flushed that shit down the toilet.
He would have relations with like their decomposing bodies.
I mean, we could keep talking about Ted Bundy.
Yeah, we'll go into that another time. He was convicted of the 20 murders that I know of, and executed 11 years later. It was in 1989. I remember that happening because I was about 10 years old at the time. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. New Year's Eve. Woo.
Well, we're gonna take it up a little bit to Thomas Edison, the creator of, everything that we use every day. In 1878, he began working on the electrical illumination, he wanted to provide a light source that didn't have to use gas or, oil and stuff like that. Because I'm sure people were, dying of the fumes. Like, he wanted long-lasting light. He wanted people to be able to see so they could read. And I guess that's what you're doing in the 1800s. There's no TV. There's nothing fun to do. They just want to stare at each other.
Tell stories.
Tell stories.
I've already heard this one.
There was no podcast.
This is a rerun.
Yeah, he wanted to create a long-lasting incandescent lamp for indoor use. He did not create the light bulb. Misconception. Someone else named Warren de la Rue created the light bulb. But he made them with platinum, and the cost of it, like, no one could afford light bulbs because he was making them with platinum. So he's like, there's got to be a way where we can make these cheap, where people can use them. And so other inventors had tried different things. They're like, he wanted to make them cheap enough to where, like, large scale commercially he'd get them out to everybody. And at one point he tried cardboard, he's trying hemp, but they burn so quickly. Right. That's too fast. Like, long lasting. So December 31st, 1879 was the first public demonstration of the incandescent lamp in Menlo Park. He said, "We will make electricity so cheap that only the rich will burn candles."
Oh.
Which I think is a lame thing to say.
Well, I don't know, though. Some people pay, like, a lot of money for scented candles. Like, Yankee Candles, those are way too expensive.
Bed Bath & Beyond, those candles?
Yeah.
Not Bed Bath & Beyond. What's the other one? Bath & Body Works.
Bath & Body Works.
Their candles are 3-wood candles. I think 3-wood candles are on sale. Like, if this is Christmas, New Year's time, so they're on sale.
Well, yeah.
But still. But I imagine, like, it must be hilarious, like, everyone's gathered around. They're so excited to watch this guy turn on a lamp.
I don't
like, it's like before the JFK assassination. Where were you? Where were you when they
turned on the lights?
When they turned on the first lamp?
You know why Edison is on my B list, though? Is because Edison, he was always hailed as such a, innovative person. But whenever Nikola Tesla came out with, Edison worked with direct current, didn't he? And then Tesla had alternating current.
Yeah.
And so, but alternating current is more dangerous than direct current. And so he would zap the livestock and elephants and take them down.
Topsy. I learned this from an episode of Bob's Burgers. He electrocuted an elephant.
Yeah.
There's footage of it. You can watch it on the interwebs. Don't watch it. It's horrible.
Electrocute an elephant. It's the worst thing ever. And he was just trying to show
B-list. He's
how
B-list, totally.
Totally B-list. And Tesla, we're only now, in the past couple of decades, really, as a society,
They recently made a movie or something about Tesla. Didn't they recently make a movie?
They may have.
I don't know if it was on Hulu or what it was. There's a movie out there.
There's a movie about Tesla.
Go Tesla.
And yeah, he was crazy as a loon. But
most inventors are.
Yeah. Well,
you got to be crazy just to be sitting there in the dirt and you're like, what if I create a lamp?
Didn't Tesla fall in love with a pigeon? I think he did.
Because all the elephants were dead.
Well, and whenever he was, late in life and he was living like in this hotel or something, right before, he would feed the pigeons, and there was one particular pigeon that he loved the most, and
he had his eye on this pigeon.
He had his eye on this pigeon. So,
did he molest this pigeon?
What was that pigeon wearing?
Was she asking for it? Probably. No. That's horrible.
But yeah, so Edison was totally B-list. I have another music one. The Beatles were probably the worst bummer out of all these, but this is a pretty bad bummer too.
All right.
It was New Year's Eve, this was in 1984.
Okay.
Rick Allen, the drummer of Def Leppard, lost his left arm in an automobile accident.
Drive safe, kids.
Ripped his arm. Now, let me tell you about Def Leppard. They're one of my favorite bands growing up.
Definitely.
I was like a 5-year-old, singing lines. I don't want to touch you too much, baby. Making love to you might drive me crazy.
I remember, oh my God, what salon did we work at where we were playing that all the time?
I think we were.
Was it?
It was Style America.
Style America.
The radio didn't work, and I only had a few CDs in my
car.
That's
the CDs, yes. And we were listening to them. I'm like,
so I put in like the greatest hits of Def Leppard. We'd listen to that for like 12 hours a day. It was. But they had 2 albums that are my favorite albums of all time was Pyromania and Hysteria. And so Pyromania, I've got some pretty cool facts about these guys.
Let's hear it.
Rick Allen, the drummer that lost his arm, of course, he was only 15 years old when he joined Def Leppard. So he was really young. So, and you know how like all those child stars and child celebrities, they have a hard time adjusting and everything. So of course he ended up turning to alcohol and the like, and he joined up in 1978, shortly after they had formed. Their albums, like I said, Pyromania and Hysteria. Pyromania spawned, hits like Rock of Ages and Photograph, Foolin'.
Alex of Photograph.
Yeah, some of their best work. And Hysteria, they recorded actually after he came back after his accident. Now, the sale of those 2 albums alone made them one of only 5 rock bands with 2 albums that sold more than 10 million copies in the U.S. alone. So they were huge. And so Pyromania came out first, and the success was wild from that album. And so they had taken some time off, and they're from England, and so Rick Allen was at home with his girlfriend. They had been doing a little drinky poo on New Year's Eve, and like I said, this was in 1984. They went for a little drive out in the English countryside, and
I could not imagine being a drummer and losing your freaking arm.
I know, right? So
talk about a bummer.
He's speeding around in his little Corvette with his girlfriend, and he goes to overtake another car and pass them at high speeds, and he ends up missing I think it was a sharp left turn or something like that. It was a really sharp turn, hits a stone wall, and then just goes careening out into the landscape, the English countryside. And as a result of that, he's ejected through the sunroof, I believe it was. So but his seatbelt wasn't fastened correctly, if it was even fastened at all. He said that it was, but it come undone.
Why would you fly out of the car?
And then, yeah, exactly. Whenever he flew out the sunroof, his arm stayed behind in the seatbelt. And I mean, it just pulled it right off.
Popped it right off. Like a Barbie doll.
Like a Barbie doll.
Right off.
Right. Like a fix this. You end up having to glue it back, and it never moves again. But no, they did reattach it actually, and he almost was able to keep it, but an infection set in later that year after he had reattached it, and they had to.
But he lost his arm twice.
He lost his arm twice, and it ended up they had to end up taking like a 2-year hiatus for him to relearn how to play drums, because he was like, I'm still going to do this. I can still do this. So what he did was have a drum kit that was made specially for him. And so everything that he would have to hit with his left arm that he had lost was replaced by another pedal by his feet. So his feet could start to do the work of what his left arm would do, such as, the snare and doing any of the reach overs or anything like that. And he could still do his hi-hat and hit the cymbals and get his runs in and everything. So it took him about 2 years to relearn completely how to play drums at this point. And they waited for him. They waited for him to learn how to play drums. And then whenever he came back, it was still a little rough, but they came back and they recorded Hysteria at that point.
Yeah.
And Hysteria is the one that came back with Pour Some Sugar on Me. And, what else was on that one? Love Bites. That one's one of my favorites. Is Love Bites. Armageddon It. That was another one.
Well, I'm sure, it's lucrative for them to wait anyways, because once they're able to record and go back on tour and things like that, you're gonna want to see that.
And it still
you're
took
gonna want
another
to see a one-arm drummer.
Well, absolutely. They still tour to this day, and he still plays drums for them. Now the band, of course, had some more hardships. They had to let a guitarist go a few years later because of his alcohol and drug use and all that kind of stuff. But Rick Allen to this day still plays drums for them, and when Hysteria released, it exploded again because everybody wanted to hear the one-arm drummer. And Pour Some Sugar on Me is probably their biggest hit.
Yeah.
And you can't go into a karaoke night without somebody playing
some drunk
playing that song.
dude's gonna sing it. I just think it's awesome because it teaches kids. I mean, obviously, don't drink and drive, but if there are kids born without limbs and things like that, don't let that stop you. You can still be a guitarist, or not a guitarist probably, but you can still be a drummer or whatever you want. Don't let it
still be a rock star,
man.
man.
You can totally still be a rock star.
And he's always been known for his tank top and his I think he was Union Jack shorts and everything. But there's a VH1 movie I think they called it, I wrote it down. And I saw it. I think they called it Hysteria too.
Yeah.
But it's a dramatization of the events that happened, and of course it's a lot more glamorized, and the timeline is a lot shorter. But it even whenever they came back from him relearning how to play drums, it took him another year to record the album. So it was 3 years between Pyromania and Hysteria.
Yeah.
And so
that's a long time in music time.
Yeah, it really is.
Forget about you.
But they sold just as many albums with the Hysteria, and they've recorded a couple of albums since then. But those 2 albums were the ones that really just catapulted them. But they're good. I've always wanted to see them live. They still come through every once in a while, and I never get to see them.
In their 60s or 70s now? They're
probably pretty close to it, I would think. Well, let's see. If he joined in 78 and he was 15, you can do the math from there. So I was born somewhere around that time. And
so they're
older gentlemen. So I'd add another 15 or so years to my age.
They're older.
And that would make them 35.
35.
Maybe 36. I don't want to exaggerate.
All right, so let's move on to the most stupid B-list thing ever as far as New Year's goes. The Y2K thing that happened in 1999. Basically, everyone was crazed in 1999 because we were told that the calendars on computers would not know what to do after ringing in the new year. They thought that computers wouldn't know what to do. And turning from 1999 to 2000, and they were going to do 1900.
Yeah, and the world was going to explode.
The world was going to explode. We were all everything was going to end. Computer World's 1993 3-page Doomsday 2000 article by Peter Day Jaeger? I'm going to say Jaeger.
It's soft J.
Jaeger, like jogging. Mm-hmm. He called it the information equivalent of the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere.
Oh, it's going to be bad.
It was called that by the New York Times. Some programs wouldn't be able to differentiate, like I said, between 2000 and 1900. Warnings like Y2K problem is the electronic equivalent of El Nino, and there will be nasty surprises around the globe. So which is this guy who was at the time was the U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense said that.
Oh my god!
Could you maybe not freak out? Let's figure this out.
Okay.
Is this, tap the mic. Is this thing on? This is gonna be like El Nino for computers.
Oh my god, no.
Yeah.
It's a recipe of Chris Farley. El Nino. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay, so the actual actual errors. December 28th, 1999, 10,000 card swipe machines by HSBC, which is like a huge company for all the they started using paper transactions until January 1st. But then the machines reset themselves and they're like, okay. But they took that precaution as like, okay, let's just do everything like
just in
with
case.
the swipies. Remember like the swipey things for credit cards.
The carbon copy.
Yeah, the carbon copies. But then January 1st, everything went back to normal. So they're like, okay.
It was a big panic for nothing. I remember my
for
dad.
Nothing. My dad wanted to like pull money out of the bank and like bury it in the yard like a hillbilly.
My dad was making sure that he had installed all kinds of stuff on there to make sure that the clocks turned and everything.
Yes, most of the problems were minor. Most of them were very fixable within like a month or two. Like it was not the big ordeal people thought it was.
No,
but
it never is.
For you little people who weren't around then, you don't understand.
It was a big thing. Do you remember what you did New Year's Eve that year?
I have no idea. I think we probably bunkered down like at the house and like tried not to go anywhere.
I actually went out with some of my friends because I was in cosmetology school that year, and I went to one of the girls.
I was about to be 18, so I was like, because my birthday's in January, so I was like a senior in high school.
Okay, I was at a party of one of the girls that I went to school with, and we counted down everything, and we watched the ball drop because we're in Texas, so we're in Central Time here,
right? And
we watched the ball drop in New York, which is an hour ahead of us, right? An hour, 2 hours, an hour. And so that we watched the ball drop and everything, and then everybody's like, okay, it's almost our time to drop our ball or whatever we do. And
no, we were like crazy doomsday preppers, just waiting for. I was waiting for it to. I don't know what I thought. Like I thought it was gonna like ring in the new year. And then, like, there would be no electricity, there would be no lights, there'd be, like...
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
I was at this party with my friend, and so we started counting down. Everybody made sure they had their glass of champagne and everything. And I think I had just turned 21. What year was that? It was, well, of course, it was 99 into 2000. So, no, 2000. So we were drinking sparkling wine, actually, at the time, because we were... us in cosmetology school were not allowed to have the drinks because we were all underage at that point. So we were sitting there and we counted down, and one of the party goers there went out to the breaker and listened to us count down. So right at midnight, he goes, boo!
That's
and all the lights went down.
Sure.
And everybody... And then my friend and I looked out the door, and the porch light was on at the neighbor's house. Right. And we're like, "Their porch light, is that a solar light?" And then we looked out the door, and everybody's lights the street lights were still on. And everything.
No, I literally think we just like sat. My friend and I would probably just sat at the house and just waited for something bad to happen, and then it didn't. But I remember like weeks ahead of time, my dad talking about like, what are we gonna do? Pull the money out of the bank and blah blah blah. Like society's going under.
Everybody thought it was gonna collapse.
Everything's gonna collapse.
We drove home. The street lights were working.
Everything
was fine. My watch stayed on time. Everything was fine.
I mean, it was
such a not big deal.
But my dad's just that guy though. Like my dad's the type of guy like he wouldn't use up until like probably 5 or 10 years ago, he would not use a computer to buy anything because the computer's going to steal your identity.
My dad was always pretty computer savvy, but
that's not how computers work.
No.
There's not a man in there waiting for your, I mean, there's plenty of men in there waiting for
There's lots of men waiting for it, but there are safeguards against it as much as we can anyway. Yeah. Well, I'm going to take this way down to sad New Year's Eve.
Take me down.
This happened in 2019, and it affected all of us worldwide.
All of us.
New Year's Eve 2019 was what officially kicked off the darkest, gloomiest spot in my life, in all of our lives. It was on that day that the World Health Organization who found out?
Who's the boss? Tony Danza, don't you forget it.
I don't know. Angela was gonna be... We'll get into that in another episode.
That's a whole other episode.
But no, the World Health Organization was notified on New Year's Eve in 2019 of a cluster of patients who were infected with a respiratory disease of unknown origin that were all tied to a wet market in Wuhan, China. And as you can guess what this is...
What is this, children?
COVID-19! Yep. We've all been affected by this.
We have all been affected by it.
Whether you have had it or...
I've had it.
She got it. Get this. She got it a week before her vaccine was scheduled. So she
I
had to wait.
I had gotten the call for my vaccine while I was recuperating from COVID.
That stinks, man.
It's like Alanis Morissette was sitting on my chest.
And then I didn't get to see her for like a year and a half after this.
That is a very
We
true
didn't get to
statement.
see each other for a really, really long time because of this thing.
We've been friends for 18 years.
Yeah.
18 years.
Her oldest was an infant child and a carrier when we met. And now he's graduating high school. So,
literally the longest we've ever gone apart.
Yeah, we've never been apart for that long.
No.
This was
We're like
just
Bert
the
and
worst.
Ernie.
I know, right?
Or Lucina. Let's say Lucina.
Lucy and
Let's say
Ethel.
Lucina.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
say that instead.
So yeah, and of course we've all lost loved ones. We know someone who's lost loved ones. We've been, you know, what can we say about this that hasn't already been said?
I remember, so I don't remember that happening New Year's, but I remember in March, like here in Texas when everything was shut down and like mandatory stay-at-home order. And I just remember thinking like, okay, well, we'll be home for a couple weeks. And then like...
It's gonna magically go away. Just
Yeah,
like
'cause
our president at the time was saying.
I'm a hairstylist. I am self-employed. I remember telling my clients like,
I'll
be
see
back
ya.
in a couple weeks. I was actually excited because I was like, 2 weeks off work?
Yeah.
If you're in the hair industry, you know, you
don't get time off like that.
2 weeks off
No.
work. I was like, all right. So I was like baking and like hanging out like...
Yeah, that's when I probably gained the most weight, was in the initial lockdown.
Yes, and then it turned into like, okay, well, 2 more weeks, and then maybe in a month, and then maybe in 2 months, and I'm like, oh my god, like, well, how long is this gonna last?
No. And so, you know, we've lost millions to it worldwide. Here in the States, we're coming up on 1 million pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't want to give too many numbers because we all know where we're at.
They change every day.
They change every day. It's still happening to us. I just want to take this moment right here to tell you guys, get vaccinated, y'all.
Wear your mask. Get vaccinated.
Wear your mask. Get
Wash your
vaccinated.
hands. Stop tongue kissing strangers.
We are so lucky to live in a country where we have an abundance of this and it's free. It doesn't cost anything to get it. It's totally safe. We both have autoimmune disorders.
Yes.
That are keeping us safe. She's been vaccinated even after she had it. She's been vaccinated.
Yep.
She's been boosted.
I've been boosted.
I've been vaccinated. I've been boosted. We both have underlying health issues that this has kept us safe. We need everyone to get their vaccines, please. They are safe.
So, it was very scary. When I had COVID, it was scary. I mean, initially I thought that I had a sinus infection or something. Like I was like stuffy and snotty and just really congested. And I was like, meh, it'll probably pass in a few days. And then I got really bad headaches. And I was like, oh no. And then I got like fevers and all that. And I'm like, oh no. So it tested positive. And it was like, it got scary around like the second or third day because then it was like, you cannot breathe. Like, it's like there's someone sitting on your chest and you cannot.
And she didn't let me know that she had it. I didn't know until she was recovering that she had it. I thought everybody was just being safe at home.
I didn't
but
tell
no,
anybody that I
she
had
didn't
it.
tell me.
I didn't tell anyone that I had it until after it was gone. There's this stigmatism around like telling people it's like telling people you have like herpes or AIDS or something. Like you can't tell anybody that kind of stuff. Like,
Well, you could have told me. I could have brought you soup.
I mean, super.
Of course, at the same time, you don't want everybody flocking to you either because you're
There's
trying to
literally nothing you can do. You just
Yeah.
gotta lay there until you feel better. But
Yeah.
hopefully you lay there till you feel better. Some people die.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, not to bring
Away
it down.
from their families, away from their. I mean, it's been the saddest, darkest period of,
So sad
of our
and dark.
history, of our recent
Sad,
history.
dark, ignorant.
And
Everyone.
the thing is, I mean, these vaccines, guys, there's so much misinformation that's going around about it that you can still shed the disease once you've been vaccinated from the vaccination, and you can't.
That's not a thing.
Because these vaccinations actually don't have any part of the virus in it. It has the blueprint. It's called mRNA, and all that does is tell you how to fight it. It doesn't give you any disease. You can't shed it.
Yep.
It's safe. This is the only way we're going to reach herd immunity because they're already talking about more variants coming out. And
You can go to Walmart, buy yourself a Snickers, and get a
vaccine. You can go anywhere.
Yeah. Definitely get
And
vaccinated.
they're effective. It reduces your hospitalization 85 to 90%. So even if you do have a breakthrough infection, you can fight it at home with your family.
So my sister got it after she had been vaccinated. She got COVID after she'd been vaccinated. She said she felt sick for like 2 or 3 days. And then, I mean, she stayed quarantined until obviously quarantine time. But she said after a few days, she was fine.
Yeah, it cuts down.
So she was one of those who got it after the vaccination, but it was like it cut down so much on symptoms and you know, time that you're out of work and your kids and all that kind of stuff. Like, and then she was able to get back to work. But
yeah,
I mean,
and you can't rely on everyone else getting vaccinated too, because if you have it and then you do happen to pass it on someone who's vaccinated, not everyone will survive it, even vaccinated. This is a labor of love that we've got to do for each other, guys.
it's like, let's just care about each other.
Let's just care about each other, man. That's the only way we're going to get out of this alive.
That's all it is.
Because if we can nip this before we have the more variants come to us, if we can just nip it in the bud before it gets worse.
Yeah.
Just do it, guys. Please,
do it.
for all of us, for your loved ones.
So we can go party some more and have
'Cause
another New Year's.
I want to have another New Year's. I want another bad New Year's in the books.
We need another crappy New Year's party.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
It's going to happen one of these
Can't
days.
do that until
maybe next year.
Hopefully next year.
Hopefully next year. But yeah, get vaccinated, guys.
Get vaccinated. Sorry to bring it down.
Sorry to bring you down. Sorry to get on the soapbox, but this is something I feel so strongly
It's
about.
very important.
I love all of you guys, and I got my vaccination for you guys.
Yes.
So
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys.
Let's make it a great year.
2022 is going to be our year, all of us. So let's get out there and do it to it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We love you. We'll see you next year.
Click like, subscribe, talk about us, all the good things.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next time.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Let me call you sweetheart.